Hello and welcome back. MC1 Gamer here, bringing you another update. So today, the 11th of August, there's another update regarding the General's Handbook 2017, or otherwise known as the GHB2. And today it is going to be some more information regarding destruction. So yeah, we've seen a couple of things regarding death, regarding order, little snippets from all the other factions, but we haven't seen stuff regarding destruction. And I'm pretty excited because I do have some destruction components. My son and I actually share elements of the Beast Claw Raiders and the I guess not anymore considered old school Gutbusters, but I'm very, with the allies opportunities, there's a tremendous amount of overlap now, more so than before. But what we have here is just a compilation of stuff that they're sneaking out, they're leaking out, they're giving us a preview, and it's great, it's nice. But of course, I just want to start off by saying, I can't wait for this thing to come out already. So let's go, GW, give us the release date. All right, so let's go into this. First, we're going to talk about Ironjaws. I'm going to preface the Ironjaws by saying that they need a little bit of something. I'd really like to see a couple of additional release units just to give them more depth, more opportunities. But with allies, I think that's really going to help them. Even if we don't see some expansion to the actual Ironjaws themselves, there's going to be a lot of help they're going to get just because of the allies, the opportunity of the allies. But with new allegiance abilities, it's going to be a challenge trying to improve upon the baseline allegiance destruction as we've seen it so far. We don't know if that's going to change or be adjusted in some slight way, the overriding one for the Grand Alliance. But for Ironjaws itself, there's some really interesting ones. So what we're seeing here is smashing and bashing. Okay, so what happens is, this is when an Ironjaws mob smashes up the enemy, it inspires other mobs to emulate the feat, leading to an orgy of smashing and bashing. If the attacks made by Ironjaws unit in the combat phase results in an enemy unit being completely destroyed, the closest friendly Ironjaws unit that has not fought in the combat phase can pile in an attack instead of waiting to make its attack normally later in the phase. So it's instantaneously right there. That really can change the order of which you choose to make your attacks. Because if you have a very depleted unit or a character, hero, or monster that's on the ropes, and you can wipe that out, it may not be the first turn that you do that, but it could be a follow-up turn where now you're able to completely decimate it, or not decimate, that's always misuse that term, but completely wipe it out, completely destroy it. You basically could start with that element, even if it might not be the most optimal or strategically appropriate thing for you to do. Maybe there's a much more important unit that you need to get out of the way before it gets wiped out itself. But in this case, you essentially are being able to activate two units, because if you wipe it out with this unit that is in position to do so, the nearest Ironjaws unit will then get immediately to go get their attack out of turn. Anytime you do anything out of turn or in different phases, it always can muck up your opponent's plans and can work heavily in your favor. So I really like that. Then there's this other one here. This is called this is the Brutish cunning. So this is a command trait. You roll a dice at the start of the enemy charge phase. Okay, on a roll 5 or more, one friendly Ironjaws unit within 6 inches of the general, I imagine that meaning the Ironjaws general, can charge as if it were their own charge phase. The charge takes place before enemy charges. There is so much messing up that you can do with this. This could be anywhere on the battlefield with a unit that is within 6 inches if you roll that 5 up. So it doesn't have to be directly related to the unit that is looking to, that is about to make the charge in your opponent's charge phase. So let's just map this out. Let's say I'm facing a destruction army, and they are equipped with this brutish cunning command trait. Before I get into my charge phase, they then roll to see if they can enact this ability. So they'll roll, and if they roll 5 up, before I declare any of my charges, well, you don't really declare, but before I start rolling for any of the charges, they get to choose a unit within 6 inches of their own general. And that could be anywhere on the battlefield where that general is. It doesn't have to be in relationship to where I'm about to try to enact some charges. And that unit then can make a charge attempt, and that's incredible. That's phenomenal. That can really muck up your plans. It could tie up a unit that you wanted to charge with. It could screen. It could have huge impacts. So yeah, I like that a lot. Now it's only a 5-up, so it's not going to happen a tremendous amount of times, but it can happen when you least expect it, and that's usually when these types of abilities happen. I wish it was maybe a 4-up, but I'm glad that it's only a 5-up because it's not going to be constant. All right, so then there are these. It says here that there are also 2 more massive War Scroll battalions for Ironjaw's armies, which is good. I think they could use some more of that stuff. I'd like to see more battalions for all of the armies, especially armies that don't have a lot of them, that are now getting allegiance abilities. I'd like to see more of that. But Ironjaw's, look, they can use some more options so they don't have just all the same. I play a lot of Ironjaw's armies that are really very much carbon copies, are very too similar to each other. It'd be nice to get some options, and I'm really looking forward to seeing that depth because I don't play Ironjaw's, but I play against them a lot. All right, one of these represents the cunning Iron Suns, granting them the much-needed cover against missile weapons in the first turn and a running start for your war boss's strength from Victory's ability. This is pretty cool. I mean, anything that can provide protection against shooting is a big deal because shooting has become so powerful in the game of late. Just in the last year or so, I'd say maybe since the last few books have come out of Kharadron Overlords, Tzeentch, obviously. There's a lot of heavy shooting that really can impact. That we need to see more rules, more battalions, more allegiance abilities that can not impede that or just counter it a little bit. I think it might even the playing field out a little more. So let's take a look at these abilities. Dakad's Cunning. Roll a dice after both sides have set up, but before the first battle round takes place. On a roll 3 or more, Mega Boss Dakbad has come up with a cunning plan and has left the enemy completely unprepared for the attack. Subtract 1 from the hit rolls of attacks made by enemy units in the first battle round. That's pretty big. I mean, you don't know if you're going to get the first turn or not necessarily, depending on what the deployment situation is. But it's always nice to be able to kind of cushion yourself and impede your opponent first turn, prevent them from doing any real damage, because if somebody is able to get that first alpha strike or get into position where they can do some real damage to you, you're playing catch up at that point. And it really is nice to be able to see an army like the Ironjaws, who have a lot of, they don't have a ton of shooting unless now that they will, of course, with new ally abilities, but they didn't have a ton of shooting. They were kind of just, big, beefy guys who would run up, take some damage, maybe a little bit here and there, wrestle stuff with the Mega Boss and whatnot, but not a lot. And it's nice to be able to kind of weather the storm from others that can shoot so they can get up there and do some serious damage. And then they have this Dakbad's Bashing, and that means that he already counts as starting as having slayed an enemy hero, so he gets his bonuses for the War Scroll, which is pretty good. Okay, so it says if you prefer ogres or greenskins, ogre armies are more versatile than ever, which is good. Firstly, Beastclaw Raiders, Firebellies, Man-Eaters, and Gutbusters can ally with one another. I love this. I'm not really big on the Firebellies, but Man-Eaters have always been a great choice, and I have plenty of Gutbusters that I've fielded in its own army, and it's nice to be able to see that they're going to be able to ally with Beastclaw Raiders to give them a little bit more dimension, not just from the Beastclaw Raider size, but from the Gutbuster size, so maybe complementing the Gutbusters as well. But I love the idea, of course. We've seen a lot of this battle line ifs with the way they describe it. I like the idea of calling it battle line contingent, but whatever. However that you describe it, whatever your label is, Lead Belchers, Mournfang Cavalry, Lead Belchers being a potential battle line is a great idea. I like the idea that we can change up so it's not the same stuff. Obviously Mournfang Cavalry for Beastclaw we already saw. I think Lead Belchers were already a battle line if you were Allegiant to Gutbusters. I don't remember. But either way, any of the more of these options gives you more dimension and help to provide different types of units on the battlefield, I think is a good idea. Having an Ogre Butcher, of course, is one of the big Achilles heels of Beastclaw Raiders, really weak when it comes to any kind of magic. You're very much conceding magic to your opponent. There are ways to do it with Allegiance to kind of get something, being able to potentially try to counter magic, but not really having a dedicated wizard. And an Ogre Butcher, even though not one of the best casters in the game, has some default abilities with its cauldron that I think is really going to be a big deal. And they use an example here, not just maybe trying to throw up a Mystic Shield, but also the cauldron triggering things again like their Spine Maw, which can give a +1 to hit for even a Frostlet and a Thunder Tusk. So a lot of those abilities are going to be updated and changed so that they keyword matchable. I just really wish we would see that old Gustbuster from the Compendium battalion change its keywords so that it would be completely legal, because it would return some of that impact hit that we saw in 8th edition for the gut busters for a lot of the bulls and such. But you know, we'll have to see. I doubt we're going to see that because we haven't had any preview on it, but maybe somewhere down the line we might see more battalions for these. Okay, this I love because this is regarding the giants, or Gargants as they're now called. I wanted to have a Gargant army. I really hope that we eventually can see that. We've seen pictures of that. You can do that in open. I had been building towards it. I got rid of 2 of the boxes. Actually, no, 3 of the boxes that I had that were unopened, but I had built 3 of them, so I have 3 currently. My son and I share them, but we rarely see more than 1 or 2 on the table. I'd love to have 3, but the way it works right now, you can have 2 as allies in a 2,000 port army, and that's fantastic. I like that they're cheaper. You know, they weren't that bad. I think they were really good value at 180 points. Maybe they're going down to 150 or 160. I don't know. But any extra points is going to save you. Now, you're not going to have to fill 3. It's not going to be cheap enough for 3. But having 2 on your side, I think, is going to be a nice deal. And they're really interesting. They're really good against infantry. They're big targets that can attract attention from your enemies. You know, when they're on, when they do what they need to do, they wreck face. I do dislike some of the rules. I don't like the idea that you have such a propensity to fall down when you're trying to charge, for example, because any doubles will result in them falling down and failing their charge. So that kind of sucks. But they tend to be hysterical, first of all, and they look great in combat, and they're just really interesting to see on the battlefield. So I'm glad that there's going to be some opportunities for them to be able to ally with other Destruction Grand Alliance factions. So that's a great addition, and I'd like to see more of that. I would really love to see a complete sub-faction with some heroes, with some characters, for Gargants, because having a 5 or 6 Gargant army would be epic. And I know that there are other people like Vince, Vince Petrillo, who's actually painted them up. You know, he beat me to it. I had a plan of doing it before him, but he's a champion painter, and he's far quicker than I am. And of course, I'm very prone to distraction, so there's that too. But I've never fielded it. I would love to try it. And I'm certainly going to be adding these 2 various mixes of destruction that I'm going to be, and I'm sure obviously my son is going to be loving that. He's going to be able to put more of these on the table that are, you know, because it won't necessarily have to be a generic destruction army now. It can be a beast claw with maybe 1 or 2 of these Gargants added in. All right, and then they're talking about MoonClan Graz. There's a couple little additions here. They mostly talk about Skwiggs, but there's some changes that we're seeing also in terms of the and I'll get to that this portion here in terms of unit sizes. But they're talking about the fact that, you know, with allying, you know, cave Skwiggs and a Grot boss, Squig hoppers, whatnot, more Battleline if units for the cave Squigs and the Squig hoppers, which is great. We need more of that. Again, gives more dimension and more flexibility for building out those armies, especially for people who have those units and haven't been able to field them as their, you know, standalone army or an army that's viable. Now you really can. I've seen a lot of, obviously, MoonClan Grots. I use them myself. I've used the 3 units of 20 with fanatics and netters, you know, piled up with Beast Claw. I've done it a couple of times, not too much, but I tried it out, and you know, I enjoy doing that, and it's pretty interesting. There are counters to it, but it's nice to be able to see, you know, some different and viable mixing of these, you know, I think underutilized because of how the rules were previously, being able to be brought into the fold and mixed in now, giving us many more looks at different types of armies than we did before, because there's a lot of really cool and interesting units that we would really work well, but with allies now they can. Before they really couldn't. So we have that, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to be very interested in mixing up a lot of this stuff with Spider Fangs, because they're very close. They're tough. They're effective, but they're not quite, you know, the upper tier. But they certainly have some stuff that can really give you pause. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, just check out some of the Warhammer TV streams. I think I've done a couple videos, 1 or 2 that included Tom, and we talked about these guys as well. But this is one of those net lists, these tournament lists that have done, you know, pretty well, pretty effectively. You know, a boss on the on one of the spiders, as well as I think it's 3 the giant, the big Arachnaroks, and such, and just a couple of units, a few units of the Spider Riders. It could be there's a lot of mortal wounds that could be dished out from that, so they're pretty effective. So mixing that in as allies, or even maybe supplementing that army with other allies for some additional bodies like Moon Clan or whatnot, or Skwiggs and Squig Hoppers and such, really could change up what's already a pretty competent and competitive list. And then we see this. This is providing us with, again, some changes in terms of min and max sizes for these units, like Grot Fanatics 3 and 6. That's pretty interesting. I know a lot of people have been responding to that on the net today, liking the posts on Twitter. These Cave Squigs 5 and 20, pretty interesting there. Herders 2 and 10. The Hoppers 5 and 20. I think the big one here is the 3 and 6. So I'm not sure if we had that as an opportunity to do it to go all the way up to 6 before. But minimum size now 3. Hey, that's fine. 100 points. That's great. I don't know if that's going to have the opportunity for a discount at maximum, but I guess maybe that's the maximum discount here for the top of the line ones for when you max out the unit size. That's pretty damn good. Okay, so. That's I think that's probably about a 20-point discount. I think they're like 20 points a piece. So yeah, we'll see. But yeah, those are scary and dangerous. Anybody who's faced the Fanatics knows that they can impact your charge, stop your charge. They can be used offensively too, which a lot of people don't use. I've seen them used pretty effectively as an offensive capability. A lot of times they're mostly held in reserve to kind of stymie opponents who try to charge a unit that has them inside, to try to kind of stop and hamper their ability to charge and then cause a little damage. But I've seen people who've unleashed them offensively, intentionally, and that's just as viable because it's your phase and you want to try and dish out as much damage as possible and have some overwhelming battle shock. Yeah, that's not a bad way to do it. Okay, so that's it. That's what we have today. Some more destruction news and more General's Handbook news. I think I can speak for everybody to say, let's get this thing released already. Let's have it. It's already the 11th of August, and we want to see this. I mean, a lot of people have been talking about this being the last week of August, maybe 21st, where we'll get it on the shelves. That's a few weeks away. It could be the 29th. It could be the 30th of August. They said it was in August. We know it's going to be in the later part of August. I hope it's on the shelf before the end of August. We'll have to see. We want that news. Maybe that news will break today. Maybe that news will break after the weekend, sometime early next week. Whatever it is, we don't want to wait. Let us know. Give it to us. Let us know, GW. And cannot wait for more General's Handbook news. Have a great weekend, everybody.